everyone, and good morning, and welcome to the first ever author interview for the lineup of February. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an author making their official debut here on the channel. Now, our guest today is an indie author of psychological thrillers and domestic suspense, known for crafting emotionally charged stories with flawed, layered characters. She is the founder and administrator of Indie Authors United Group on Instagram, a community dedicated to ethical support, honest reviews, and uplifting voices. When she's not writing, she is connecting authors and readers and advocating for transparency in the indie publishing world. So, without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, author Lisa Guerrero. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you here on The Wandering Scribe. I really do appreciate it. Now, before we dive into your background as an author, as a little icebreaker question, is there a random fact that not a lot of people know about you?
I come from a very small town that most people don't know of, so you typically don't see a lot of writers or people that do a lot of things in my area. So that little tidbit is a bit of something that nobody knows.
Nice. Very, very nice. And for those now meeting you for the first time here on the show, what are some of the books you have written or any kind of short stories, not novellas, any publications that are out there in the work that people should read to know more about you?
The first book that I actually published on KDP was The Monsters Among Us, and that was actually written for a young female that was going through a traumatic experience, and she didn't have the voice or the courage to speak up. So I wrote that book for her, and she actually ended up speaking out and speaking up against the monster that put her through something traumatic. And she is now going to school to be a counselor to advocate for people that had gone through situations like herself. So I was glad that my voice was able to help her heal and to continue to help other people in that journey as well.
Awesome. That is amazing. That is incredible to hear, Lisa. Now, before we dive into more about your background as an author, let's talk about you, the behind the scenes. So what really put you on this path to become an author? What was the aha moment?
I feel like the aha moment for me was as long as I can remember, I've always loved to write. So I was writing stories and plays at like a really, really young age, and I would be performing them at school with my friends. And then as I got older, I started writing short stories, and then it just became a way to like get all the chaos that was in my head out and onto a page and have it make sense. Because when it's inside of your head, nothing really makes sense until it's on paper.
Yes.
So for me, it was just so chaotic. I needed to get it out.
Very true. Very, very true. I cannot tell you how very similar that is to a lot of guests I've had here on the show. And when you decided to make that plunge into the world of publishing and being an author, what really surprised you initially?
I think that in my mind, I felt like it was going to be easy. And I was like, oh, it's really good. I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to get a lot of readers. And I'm going to get a lot of reviews. And it was like crickets. For the longest time, it was crickets. And I think that kind of put a damper on my confidence in writing. But then I had to tell myself, it's not what I'm writing. It's just the way that the world works. And you have to, in order to put in the work, you have to make sure that you're doing everything from start to finish as well. And I think that I lacked that promoting aspect of things. So once I figured out, from what I needed to do from the end product, it made it a little bit easier.
All right. All right. So now let's actually talk about the creation of your stories using Monster Among Us as a starting point. So, as you mentioned earlier, Lisa, that this story is based upon something that happened to someone that you knew and you became their voice in a manner of speaking. So, when crafting this story, how did that all come about in terms of the structure, the plot, everything in between?
I kind of just wanted to make it meaningful, but without causing too much trauma and going into description of situations that have occurred in the book without giving too much away.
Mm.
And I didn't want to dive into so much hurt that it caused her to bounce backwards instead of moving forwards as well. So I had to be careful on what I wrote and how I wrote it. So it was more compelling and more in that aspect, it was more like healing and helpful for her in order to move forward.
Excellent. All right. All right. And as a fan question, one of our first for the interview, Lisa, one of my viewers and subscribers wants to know, as an author, do you have your own writing routine?
I don't necessarily have my own writing routine. I just kind of let the chaos take control and just let it do what it needs to do when it needs to do it.
Yep, that is also very true. And it works sometimes. Sometimes, as authors and as storytellers, we just let the madness take the wheel and we're surprised by what we can create.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. All right. And then once you figured out the general outline and plot of Monsters Among Us, Lisa, this is a two-part question. What was your goal going into this project? And what was the promise you were making, not just to yourself, but also to the individual involved, as well as prospective readers?
I just wanted her to feel like she was not in this alone, that regardless of what happened to her, she's not the only one that has happened to. And it doesn't mean that you need to stay quiet. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or you did something for it to happen to you. It's just the way that the world works, and there are cruel monsters in this world, and we have to be able to navigate our way and be able to use our voice to stop them from hurting others.
All right. Very good message. Absolutely true. And another fan question one of my subscribers wants to know is, besides Monster Among Us, are there any other works of yours out there for people to view?
I do. I have a trilogy called Pam the Scam. It's about a female businesswoman who is devious and scandalous in all the sassy and fun ways. She gets into a lot of trouble, and yeah, she's very sassy and devious, I can say, without giving too much into it. She loves embezzling. She calls herself the embezzling queen. So that gives you a little bit of details as to what she does in the books. There is Becoming Unhinged. That was a really, really hard story for me to write. I had nightmares writing that story.
Oh, wow.
I got kicked off the internet for searching for that story. I told my husband I thought that the FBI was probably going to be knocking on my door because of the things that I was looking up for this book. Yeah, it was really hard for me to write that book. It was really hard. Clyde Grimshaw was a very, very difficult character for me to write just because of how greedy he was.
Interesting. And that kind of leads into the next question, Lisa, which is on characters. So as an author, how do you balance the authenticity of the character in the sense of it makes sense for a character like that to exist in the story that you're writing them in?
Because in everyday worlds, they exist, and we just don't like to talk about them. We don't like to discuss how deeply disturbed they are in some instances. And I like to bring light to some of the things that we don't like to talk about every single day.
All right. All right. And kind of a little more of a semi-reflective question, Lisa. When you began this journey, I know that for us as authors, it's not very easy to let others into our world, especially those that may be kind of on the edge of us, being authors. And the reason I bring this up is that a lot of guests I've had on the show over the last 3 years, and I'm going on 4 years, is that when we tell people that we're authors, the reactions are mixed. And that usually sometimes includes friends and family. So for you, Lisa, when did you tell your friends and family that you were embarking on this journey as an author?
That's actually pretty funny because a lot of people don't know in my immediate circle,
Oh,
other than
wow.
my immediate family, like my mom, my brother, my sisters, a few close friends, and maybe some like godparents and god siblings and things like that nature. But most people don't really know. I met a friend from high school. We had coffee a couple weeks ago, and I gave her a book, and she was shocked that I even wrote a book. But I used to do plays with her, so it wasn't shocking enough that I had written plays or written something. It was just shocked that I had actually taken a step forward to actually put my work out there.
All right. All right. And kind of moving ahead in your journey, once you did publish your stories using Monster Among Us as, again, another example, what was the overall reaction like, not just from reviewers, but also potential beta readers and ARC readers who looked at the work before?
They actually loved it. They loved my writing style. And I guess I didn't realize I had a particular writing style. I just kind of wrote whatever was in my head and made it make sense to me. So the fact that other people can relate to my way of writing, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like my voice is being heard across pages that I write.
All right. All right. And that kind of goes into another fan question, which is a two-parter. And one of my subscribers asked, throughout your writing career, what has been your favorite scene to write and the most difficult scene, to bring forth?
Is this in any particular book or?
Overall, throughout your writing career, among all of your works, which one has been your favorite and which one's probably the most challenging?
Well, Pam Mazzarelli is definitely my favorite because she has probably been the easiest character to write just because she is so sassy and so full of energy and so spunky, and she just gets into so much trouble and you never know what she's going to get into. And her books are written like a journal. So it's each
Ooh.
page is like a journal that she's writing. So it's really good. I personally, that was my favorite. And I feel as though Clyde Grimshaw was my most difficult character to write just because he was really, really gritty. He is a very, very dark character. He's a very, very troubled character. He wasn't always that way. There was something that had turned him dark. And yeah, he was very difficult to write.
All right. All right. And now the next two questions before I get into the reflective portion of the interview, I think are very important to talk about because they go hand in hand together. And that is, of course, imposter syndrome and writer's block. Now, for us as authors and creators in general, those are always going to be apparent in our day-to-day lives. I cannot tell you how many guests I've had on the show who have shared their experiences with writer's block and even more so imposter syndrome, which is always going to be back of everyone's mind. And sometimes for us as authors, there are going to be days where we do not want to write, or we will completely remove a page and a half of work because it doesn't make sense. And it could be frustrating and infuriating. So for you, Lisa, how do you handle and deal with those two big issues as a creative?
I have to step away. I have to take a break and I have to clear my mind of whatever thoughts I had going on in there that weren't working or that I'm just stuck on. So maybe taking a little break will give me that little bit of refresher to get back in there and do something different that's just not clicking at that moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I can step away for 5 minutes and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I have a massive amount of things that I want to say. And then there's times where I can go days or weeks. It just kind of depends, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And that also kind of now perfectly segues into what I like to call the reflective aspect of being an author. Now, just fair warning, Lisa, this is a very, very loaded question with multiple layers. So I'm going to give it to you in parts. So the first one I want to talk to you about in a more umbrella discussion is, your thoughts on what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? Because being an author has definitely changed over the last 20 years. I mean, for a long time, a lot of people thought that traditional was the way to go. It was the hill to die upon. And while, yes, traditional publishing is still the dominant player in the publishing world, you have indie publishing, which is now probably second, followed by hybrid publishing. It's absolutely insane. I mean, there are so many incredible indie authors, some of whom I'm pretty sure you've had the opportunity to meet and connect with, as we'll touch later on. We get to the business side of being an author. And with social media being a ever-present reality in an author's life, it's now another tool for us to use to branch out and meet new people, to promote who we are as authors. But social media, I think, and a lot of authors definitely would agree, that it heightens our imposter syndrome and further reinforces our writer's block, because we do leave ourselves exposed to the masses. We are now open to the world. And it can be a very emotionally draining and nerve wracking feeling to just be out there in the world. So ultimately, Lisa, with all that said, what does still discipline you to still stay true to yourself as an author with your own set of goals, objectives, and things that are really important to you as a creative person?
At the end of the day, I'm still trying to portray a story that I want people to read. And sometimes that story can come across as dark and gritty, and sometimes that story can come across as trauma, and sometimes that story can come across as chaotic and spunky and criminal. It just depends on the mood that I'm in, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
But being a writer is not always easy, and putting yourself out there is not always easy as well. And the digital era that we are in makes it so much easier for us to put our things out there, but it also brings in criticism as well, and for others to kind of come in and steal some of your ideas. And that makes it kind of scary as an author, because then you need to kind of protect yourself in that aspect as well.
Very true. Very true. So now, as a add-on to the previous question, would you also agree, looking at the industry yourself as an author, that it's never been more easier to get published, but it's never been more difficult to get noticed as an author?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so much harder, I believe, to get noticed than it is to have your work out there, because you can, with the click of a button, have your book literally published, and nobody will know it until you physically go out there and say, hey, I got a book published, because how else are they going to know that, hey, X, Y, and Z has a book out? I've never been one to be good about talking about myself or my books. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for me in that aspect of things. So I'm having to learn, and being a part of an indie authors group helped me do so. And it helped me broaden my horizon of reading other genres than I was just stuck in. So I'm very, very fortunate enough for that.
Very true. Very true. And I think another thing which is important to talk about as authors is the rise of generative AI trickling down into the publishing industry. And I talked to a lot of guests on the show about this particular topic, not just authors, but editors, narrators, anyone who has worked in the publishing industry at any point. And a lot of people agree that AI as a tool is always going to be there. There's no way to get around it. And it should be used as a tool. But generative AI has no place in the creative sphere because it creates a false sense of creativity and it mass produces it. And ultimately, yes, kind of backpedaling a little bit, a lot of authors began their journey during the COVID era. And a lot of them were able to write, and that's amazing. I myself grew during the COVID era in terms of writing my books. But now with the rise of generative AI, you now have a new generation of people that are using that to just create stories on the fly. And going back to what we talked about, Lisa, how it's never been more easy to get published because you could literally go into a software program, tell it the story that you want, boom, it writes a story for you, and you publish it within a matter of a few days. And in some instances, some of these books have gotten significant book deals, and it just ultimately changes the whole game for a lot of us authors. And I'm pretty sure you've had conversations like that with others in your community. So ultimately, my question to you is this: how dangerous and how detrimental is generative AI to the publishing industry? And in your opinion, do you think that it may fade away and lead to a golden age of authors? Or if it continues to be used incorrectly, we can go into a cyber digital dark age of creativity?
I guess I'm old school in a sense, and I don't care for it. I do know that technology is ever advancing. I understand that. I do know that there are people that have used AI to use grammar and spelling check and whatever in their books. I don't use AI. I know that there are people that have used Gemini or Chat GBT. I don't feel that using that is a tool that could benefit you because it's not really your voice. I feel like it's altering your words and what you want to say. And I don't know. I want my words to be portrayed in the way that I want them to come out, not the way that someone else wants them to be said or told. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, it goes back to this notion that with generative AI, it just sounds fake, artificial,
Yes. Yes.
and again, it mass produces creativity, a false sense of creativity, and you lose that human connection. And that's something we're going to be touching on now in the business side of being an author. So, as an icebreaker question, Lisa, when you publish your stories for all of your books, what was the surprising factor you learned about that part of the journey? And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in terms of marketing and promoting your books?
Yes. I feel that when authors begin their author journey and they get out there and they put their books out there, no one really tells you. There's not a manual out there that says you go from step 1 to step 10 and this is how you do it, because what works for somebody is not going to work for another person.
Absolutely.
And so I just felt like social media was the way to go. So I just was out on social media and putting out my books and as much as I possibly could. But then I realized that that is not a way to go about getting it out there either. So that there are ways that you're supposed to go about it. I was just not aware of the proper ways to do it. So getting in with a group of people, you collaborate with ideas and brainstorm, and you get different ways of doing things that you wouldn't have necessarily done if you didn't know about it yourself. So it's helped me learn as an author to get my book out there and different ways that I would have not have thought of before on my own.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Now let's talk about probably a big thing about us as authors, and that is, of course, understanding our audience. Now, for us as authors, as I said numerous times, viewers and listeners, on many different episodes, we as the authors are the target audience first and foremost because we know the story better than anyone else. But when we make the decision to publish, that's when we have to take a step back, remove the writer's cap, put on the business hat, and really understand, okay, we've written this story. What genre does it actually belong to? And who exactly is going to read a story like this? And it's not easy. There's no definitive answer. Yes, we have heard numerous times of writing for your audience, but the audience can change. It can fluctuate over time. And that just comes with experience in the territory. Because on one hand, you don't want to write a story that is too familiar, that's going to be seen as a knockup of that story. On the other hand, you don't want to write something that's entirely new that can throw people into a funk and just be completely lost. It's this fine balance and equilibrium. So, Lisa, for you as an author, when you have looked at your own stories, were you able to find that balance? And if so, how difficult was it?
Finding that balance wasn't very difficult just because for me, making stories that are gripping and leave you on the edge of your seat and gasping for air and all the twists and turns, like that's what I live for. Like that is what I want my readers to get at every experience when they open up my books from start to finish. So if I can master that, then I've done my job as an author.
Nice. Very, very nice. And another question, which isn't very important to talk about, which is actually really, really cool, because I really want to hear your thoughts on this, is as you mentioned before, no one really tells you, the playbook for being an author when it comes to marketing. But one thing that is very helpful and something that's learned almost kind of on the fly is networking. Networking as an author is huge and essential. And I know from your bio that you're actually the administrator of this huge indie author community that you are a part of. So can you share with our viewers and listeners how that came about and how you, as an author, were able to use this community to help build sort of your brand, but also give a voice to other indie authors who may be in the same boat as you?
So the idea generated when I was trying to market and promote my book and getting the word out there. I had connected with some other authors and I was like, hey, it would be a good idea to kind of do a read for read type of group and kind of, you read my stuff, I read your stuff. If you would like to leave an honest review, leave an honest review. If not, you can skip it. So it started out as that, and then now we have about 84 members of avid readers and indie authors, and it's called Indie Authors United. It's over on Instagram. We do ethical read for read partnerships, cross-promoting each other's work. It's general community engagement. We support each other. We uplift each other. We bounce ideas off each other. It is an amazing, amazing group of people.
That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible. And kind of as still an add-on to this question, how important is it for authors to really sort of begin networking to grow their own community? Because especially for indie authors, it is not easy. It is very expensive to be an indie author?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually very curious for you and your stories. Who are some of the people that you've brought into your circle who have helped you bring your stories to life in terms of, cover artists, editors, beta readers, and ARC readers?
Um, I have been very fortunate enough to have people within my group. Holly Ray is another author within the indie group. She's been an anchor for me. She actually offers guidance, hands-on help when I need it the most. She believes in my work. She changes my whole trajectory of thinking and builds my confidence up. And Ray Marie, Jessica Sanders, Mandy Kennick, Liliana Redmond, H.L. Wiley. They're just a few of them that's in this group. They're constantly cheering me on, jumping in to help whenever I need help. I can't thank them enough. And the rest of the group, they're amazing, 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 amazing authors.
Incredible, Lisa. Absolutely incredible. And now we're going to go into probably a new favorite segment that a lot of authors and guests like, and that is, of course, the rapid fire round. Now, these questions are a whole bunch of fan questions that a lot of viewers and subscribers have sent to me in recent years, and I've sort of compiled them on my phone right next to me just to make sure I can get to each and every one of them. So starting off with the first fan question, one of my viewers and subscribers asked, in your opinion as an author, in regards to the 5 physical senses, which one is probably the most difficult to emulate in storytelling?
Probably the sense of smell, just because it's so hard to describe what you're actually smelling and in that moment, because it could be an array of different things, and trying to portray that on the page for me is the most difficult.
All right. Fan question 2 is, which is the most underrated and overrated trope in fiction?
Ooh. Probably the unreliable narrator.
All right. All right. Third question, for you as a reader, which do you prefer, themes or tropes?
I like themes. I prefer themes, yes.
All right. All right. Number, what was that? 4. Yes, number 4. This one may be a little tough one, Lisa. Rank the main characters from all of your books from personal favorite to least favorite.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I have a lot of characters.
I know that.
We might be here all day.
Okay, let's go with the top 3.
Okay, the top 3. From least to favorite, or from favorite to worst?
Favorite to least.
Okay. My favorite would have to be Pam. The next one would have to be Evelyn. And the last one would have to be Clyde Grimshaw, because he was the most difficult one to read in Becoming Unhinged.
Okay, and still kind of within the character mindset, this is actually sort of one of my favorite fan questions. If your characters, specifically the ones you just mentioned, Lisa, if they had a theme song, what theme song would they have?
Ooh. Do you know the Cops theme song for Bad Boy, Bad Boy?
Yes.
Well, Pam's would be Bad Girl, Bad Girl.
Love it.
And let's see, anybody else? I don't know what my other theme songs would be, but they would not be very good for Clyde Grimshaw, that's for sure.
I could imagine. I could imagine. All right. All right. Now, the next fan question. This one is a really, really good one, a good reflective one. And it asks, for you as an author, when do you know when it's time to stop writing?
When I'm getting frustrated, when I have nothing else to say, when I can't get the words to form what I want them to say, brain fog, happens and it's real. And it's no fun when you can't think of words and you're stuttering over words that you know, but you just can't get out. So in that moment, I have to put everything away, take a step back, and say, it'll happen another day.
All right. And kind of follow up to that. As an author, when do you know when the story is truly finished?
When it has nothing left to say.
Very true. Very, very true. And a really good fan question, one that I actually used to ask guests on the show when I first started the series. What are some of your favorite books or beloved authors that have left an imprint on your life as a reader that may have also played a part in your writing style or writing development?
I would have to say that would be Gillian Flynn, because her books are similar to mine in a way because it uses psychology, but mine uses psychology, but it's like more within the person itself instead of like the book, if that makes any sense.
Yes. All right. All right. And this one's probably one of my personal favorites. It's a very loaded question, Lisa. So again, just letting you know. So this one is more of a hypothetical scenario. So let's say you've been invited to partake in a writer's summit, and you are among a panel of authors. And in the room, your audience is filled with aspiring writers, student writers, poets, debuting, and more. And each of the guests, let's say there's five, well, panel, I should say, each panelist has a topic that they want to share. They want to talk about for the juice the first 15 minutes. And then it gets to you. And you have to then talk about the harsh truth about being an author, which is there is no guarantee your book is going to be an overnight success. But that is okay and should not be seen as a reflection of your self-worth as an author. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, as an author, there is no guarantee that you're going to make a lot of money in this industry. It's not a get rich quick scheme. And there are going to be books that you're going to be known for more than others. And that's completely fine. So in this hypothetical scenario, Lisa, how would you teach this notion to your audience?
I would let them know that writing is an art. It's whether you're feeling inspired or if you're in pieces and shattered. It's if you don't need to wait for permission to write. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest and get the words out there. Protect your voice and don't compare your journey to anybody else's journey because everyone's journey is going to be different. And find a community. And I'll say that again, find a community, because when you find a community, you get support, and that support will have so much integrity and it'll carry you further than any algorithm ever will.
Absolutely well said, Lisa. And now we arrive at the final few questions of this amazing author interview. Now, we talked about a lot of things, a lot of great things. And there is one question that I do want to ask you. Looking back on your journey thus far, how different would you say your life would be if you did not pursue this path as an author? What would your life be like?
It would be really different. It would be boring, to be honest. Writing brings me life. It gets all the craziness out of my head and gets it onto a piece of paper to where it makes sense. And then it brings enjoyment for other people to take a step away from their chaotic and crazy lives and enjoy something that can be funny and a little bit serious sometimes. And it could be having you think about things that you don't necessarily think about, situations that you're in or that other people have gone through that you don't typically see or hear every day. I write about things that are dark, things that we don't always take lightly. Yeah, my mind's kind of sick in that way. It just kind of comes to me and I just get it all out on a page.
All right. All right. And then finally, with your books out there for readers to purchase and discover on their own, what do you want them to take away from your style of writing and your voice as an author? And ultimately, what is a pearl of wisdom you wish to instill upon your new readers who pick up your work for the very first time?
I want you to know that when you pick up my book, you're getting a piece of my soul, my blood, my sweat, my tears, my frustrations. You're getting a piece of my brain that begs me to get up and write and does not leave me alone until I get it all out there. It's a gripping experience that will have you questioning some situations and have you thinking like, wow, what made you come up with that idea? I don't know. My brain comes up with it and I just write it. I just do whatever up here tells me to do and it comes out. Yeah. It's a crazy, crazy process, and it doesn't always make sense, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just flows when it flows.
Nice. Very, very nice, Lisa. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude our first ever author interview for the month of February here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to Lisa for coming on the show, making her official debut on the Wandering Scribe. Now, Lisa, again, thank you so much for coming on the show and allowing us to peek deep into your world as an author and as a creative. Now, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out, connect, as well as purchase a copy or two of your books? And once more, how can people join your indie author engagement group?
I am on Instagram, and you can find me at random.thoughts.n.writings. I'm also on Facebook, same tag, Random Thoughts and Writings, and TikTok as well. And if you would like to join my fabulous, amazing group of indie authors and avid readers, you can direct message me on there, and I will shoot you an email with all the rules and all the good information to get you started. Most of our authors in there and our avid readers have Kindle Unlimited, just so that there is no added cost for them to purchase other people's books to read. But yes, we're a fabulous community that support one another, and you can find me on Instagram if you would like to join.
Awesome. Awesome. And your works are on Amazon, correct? For people
Correct.
to buy?
Correct. And they are on Kindle Unlimited as well.
Nice. I will attach all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. Thank you for joining us again for this incredible author interview. I want to give a huge thank you to Lisa for coming on the show. And if you'd like to see Lisa make a return again sometime later this year, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, viewers and listeners, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Have a wonderful morning, everyone.